My wife secretly married her boss after stealing $250, $0 of our savings, and now she's claiming half our house. She's even threatening legal action over our $400, $0 inheritance, all while I just found out she's been sleeping with his brother the whole time. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife, Lisa, turned out to be a complete nightmare. Honestly, I thought we had a solid life. 2 kids, a nice house, decent jobs. We weren't rich, but we got by. That all changed in a matter of weeks. The thing is, I had no idea how deep her betrayal went until I stumbled across the truth in the worst way possible. And let me tell you, the bombshell I uncovered was nothing compared to what was waiting for me after I found out. It's like every time I thought I had a handle on things, she'd pull another stunt, and suddenly, my whole world was upside down. Lisa always acted a little bitchy, but I figured that was just her personality. She's always been kind of sharp-tongued, quick to dismiss anyone she didn't like, especially when she was annoyed. But lately, her attitude had gotten worse. She snapped at me for the smallest things, was secretive about her phone, and started working late more often. At first, I thought maybe she was stressed at work or maybe she was just tired. I didn't suspect anything sinister. Not yet. Then came the money. Oh, the money. We had saved about $250, $0 over the years, mostly from my salary, a little from her side gigs. We kept that stash in a secret account just in case. I'd always been careful with money. I knew she liked to spend, but I trusted her to handle things reasonably. That was until I noticed some strange transactions in the account, withdrawals I didn't recognize and some large transfers to a woman's name I'd never heard of. When I asked Lisa about it, she told me it was just some investment she was making secretly that she didn't want me to worry. Yeah, right. That tiny lie was the first crack in the facade. Things got weirder when I started noticing her phone kept buzzing at odd hours. She'd quickly hide it or turn it face down when I came near. One night, I caught her in the act. She was on her phone, and her screen lit up with a message from someone called Jake. I saw a few messages that didn't make sense, flirty, suggestive, talking about meetings and seeing each other tonight. My stomach sank. I asked her about it the next morning and she brushed me off, saying it was just that I was paranoid. Yeah, right. I knew better. Then the biggest shock came when I accidentally overheard her talking on the phone with her boss, Mark. I was in the garage fixing when I heard her say, "Yes, Mark, I'll do whatever it takes. I want that promotion and I'll make it worth your while." I froze, my mind raced. I knew she'd been working late, but she was scheming, clearly. And the way she said whatever it takes, it sounded like she was willing to do anything, including using her body. That was the moment I started putting the pieces together. But the real bombshell, it wasn't just her flirting with Mark. No, I found out that she had married him secretly after stealing $250,000 from us. Our savings gone. She'd been sneaking around, lying about her whereabouts, and I never suspected a thing. She told me she was just working late, that I was overthinking. Meanwhile, she was planning her new life with her boss, Mark, and apparently she had a backup plan, his brother, David. I found receipts, texts, emails, proof she'd been sleeping with both brothers, sometimes at the same time, all while pretending to be the perfect wife. I was devastated. How could I have been so blind? I'd trusted her with my life, and she'd been betraying me from day one. And now she's claiming half the house, threatening legal action over our inheritance, all while she's been sleeping around with her boss and his brother. I felt crushed, furious, betrayed. I wanted to scream, to break something, but all I could do was sit there, staring at the evidence, trying to process how this woman I loved and married could turn into this manipulative, lying bitch. I knew I had to figure out what to do next, how to fight back, how to protect what's mine, and more than anything, how to get her out of my life for good. After I found all that stuff, her secret wedding to Mark, the texts with David, the stolen money, it felt like my entire world was collapsing. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, that fake smile she always wore, and then the images of her sneaking around with those brothers. It was like a punch to the gut every single time. I kept thinking, how did I miss all the signs? I thought we had a good life, that I knew her inside out. Turns out I didn't know anything. The first thing I did was dig into the financial mess. I pulled bank statements, looked at the transfer history, and found that she'd been funneling money into accounts under her control. She lied about everything. She told me she was saving for the kids' college, that she was making smart investments. Meanwhile, she was secretly draining our savings, using it to pay off her new life with Mark. I found receipts for jewelry, designer clothes, trips, things I never knew about. She'd spent thousands on herself, all while pretending to be the devoted wife. I confronted her that night. I called her into the living room and laid everything out, her texts, the bank statements, the emails. Her face twisted in anger and surprise, then quickly shifted to that bitchy mask she always wore when she was trying to lie her way out of something. She said, "You're overreacting, John. You don't understand what's really going on. I've been stressed, yes, but I love you. This is just a misunderstanding." She tried to act innocent, like I was the one losing my mind, but I wasn't buying it anymore. Her reaction made me furious. I told her I knew she'd been sleeping with Mark and David, that I knew she married Mark behind my back, and that I'd seen enough to know she'd been stealing from us. Her eyes flashed with contempt as she snapped back. "You're just jealous, John. You're insecure. Mark's a successful man and he's going to give me everything I ever wanted. You're just a guy stuck in his old ways." That's when I realized she'd been planning this for a while, spinning her lies, poisoning everything around us. The woman I loved had turned into a manipulative cheat, and I was the fool. The emotional toll hit me hard. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and downright angry. I kept asking myself how I could have missed the signs, how I'd been so blind. I'd always thought we had a good marriage, that we trusted each other. Turns out I was just fooling myself. She'd been lying to my face for months, maybe longer. I felt a mixture of sadness and rage. Sad that I lost the woman I thought I knew, and rage that she'd used me, lied to me, and now was trying to take everything I had left. I knew I had to decide what to do next. I couldn't keep living in this nightmare. I started gathering evidence, planning my next move. I reached out to a lawyer, got copies of all the financial documents, and started thinking about how to protect what was mine. The house, our inheritance, the kids. She was threatening to take everything, and I refused to just sit back and let her. I realized that this wasn't just about the money. It was about her betrayal, her disrespect, and her complete disregard for the vows we made. I had to fight for my dignity, for what was rightfully mine, and for the future I still wanted to salvage, if that was even possible. I knew I couldn't trust her anymore. She'd lied so much, manipulated me, and now she was demanding her share of the house, claiming she deserved it because she was married to Mark. She even threatened legal action over the inheritance, stuff I knew was legally mine. But I also knew I needed to be smart. I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything without a fight. I had to find a way to turn the tables, to make her see that I wasn't some pushover. That's when I started planning my revenge. Not just to hurt her, but to make her realize she couldn't manipulate me anymore, that I was done being the fool. And that's where I stand now, waiting for the next move, trying to figure out how to stop her from taking everything I've worked for. I don't know how this will end, but I do know one thing. I won't let her get away with it. Not without a fight. After I gathered all the evidence, her secret marriage to Mark, the texts with David, the bank transfers, the receipts, I felt a strange mixture of relief and rage. Relief, because I finally saw the truth. Clearly, rage, because I'd been stupid enough to trust her for so long. I kept replaying every little moment, every argument, every time she dismissed my concerns as insecurities. Now, it all made sense. She'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. She'd been living a double life right under my nose, and I was the fool who didn't see it. The first thing I did was contact a lawyer. I needed to understand my legal standing, what I could claim, what she could try to take from me, and how to protect what was ours. The lawyer, a guy named Mike, was straightforward. He told me that since the house was in both our names, she might have a case for half, especially if she could prove she contributed to the mortgage or improvements. But I also had the receipts showing I was the primary breadwinner, and that she'd been funneling money into her own accounts. I felt a little hopeful, but I knew this was just the beginning. Meanwhile, Lisa kept playing her games. She called me a paranoid fool, said I was overreacting. She accused me of trying to control her, of being jealous because she was more successful now. She even had the nerve to cry, saying she loved me and the kids, that she was just stressed and needed a break. That was rich coming from her, considering she was busy screwing her boss and his brother while pretending to be the perfect wife. I kept my cool, but inside I was boiling. I knew I had to stay calm if I was going to get through this. One night I decided I'd had enough of her lies. I went through her phone again, looking for anything I might have missed. That's when I found a folder hidden in her cloud storage, full of pictures and videos, and what I saw made my stomach turn. She'd been secretly recording her sex with Mark and David, sometimes in our own house, sometimes at their place. There were explicit videos, some of her moaning, some of her pleas, all while she was pretending to be my loving wife. It was disgusting. The betrayal cut so deep I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of lies. I also found out she'd been planning to leave with Mark, maybe even take the kids. There were emails about moving to a different city, about setting up a new life where she could be free from me. I felt a surge of anger. How dare she do this to us? To me? She'd used her body and her lies to take everything she could, and now she was threatening to rip apart what little family we had left. I realized I couldn't let her get away with it, not without fighting back. The next step was clear. I needed to confront her again, but this time I had concrete proof. I sat her down in the living room, laid everything out on the table, her secret marriage, the videos, the money she stole, the texts. Her face twisted in rage and panic. She everything at first, saying it was all misunderstandings, that I was crazy for thinking she'd do something like that. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her I knew about the videos, about her plans to leave, about the money she'd stolen. Her eyes flashed with fury as she spat. "You're just jealous, John. I don't need you anymore. Mark will take care of me." That's when I realized she'd crossed every line. She didn't care about the marriage, about the kids, about the truth. All she cared about was her own selfish gain. I felt a mixture of disgust and heartbreak. I'd loved her once, but now I saw her for what she really was, a manipulative, selfish bitch who'd used me and lied to my face. I knew I had to get her out of my life for good. I couldn't keep living like this, constantly looking over my shoulder, wondering what she'd do next. So I made a decision. I'd fight for everything that was mine, our house, the inheritance, custody of the kids if it came to that. I knew she'd try to take as much as possible, but I wasn't going to let her. I started planning my next move, getting more evidence, talking to lawyers, preparing for the legal battles ahead. I also knew I had to be strategic. She was good at lying, good at manipulating, but I had enough proof to show her true colors. I was done being the fool. Right now, I'm just waiting for the next chapter. She thinks she's in control, but I'm not letting her walk all over me anymore. I'll fight for what's rightfully mine, and I'll make her regret ever crossing me. I don't know how this will end, but I do know I won't go down without a fight. Not this time. The days that followed were a blur of legal consultations, frantic planning, and trying to keep my head above water. Every time I thought about what she'd done, married her boss behind my back, slept with his brother, stole our savings, I felt this gnawing sense of betrayal that just wouldn't quit. It was like she'd been plotting her escape for months and I'd been too blind to see it. The worst part, she still acted like she was the innocent victim, spinning her lies and trying to turn everyone against me. I started documenting everything, screenshots of her texts, copies of bank statements, emails, even recordings of her calls. I wanted to be ready for whatever she threw at me. My lawyer, Mike, told me to prepare for a fight over the house, the inheritance, and custody. She was claiming half the house, saying she contributed equally, which was a total lie. I knew I had to prove she'd been living off my income, lying about her secret investments, and using our money to fund her new life. I also had to prepare for her to try and claim the inheritance, our family's savings and property that I was set to inherit after my parents passed. Meanwhile, Lisa's attitude was getting bitchier by the day. She'd call me a jealous loser, accuse me of trying to control her, and act like she was the victim. She even started turning the kids against me, telling them I was mean and trying to take everything away from her. I felt like I was losing my mind watching her manipulate everyone around her. The more she lied, the more I realized how deep her deception went. She wasn't just cheating. She was trying to erase me from her life and take everything I had worked for. One night I caught her sneaking out of the house again. I followed her just to see where she was going. Turns out she'd been meeting Mark at a hotel, just like I suspected. I saw her slip inside, her face flushed, her hair a mess. I felt this intense pain in my chest. How could she do that right under my nose? And then I thought about the videos I found, her moaning, her begging, her pretending to love me. It all hit me like a freight train. I'd been played for a fool and she didn't care. She was out there, sleeping with the man I trusted while I was at home, clueless. That was the moment I decided I had to act faster. I couldn't let her keep doing this, sneaking around, draining our money and manipulating the kids. I hired a private investigator just to confirm what I already knew: she was actively cheating, planning to leave us behind. The PI brought back footage of her at the hotel, her with Mark and David, laughing and kissing. Seeing that was like a punch to the gut. All my doubts, all my fears, they were real. She wasn't just a little sneaky. She was actively betraying me in the worst way possible. I also started reaching out to some friends and family, trying to get support. I needed allies because I knew she'd try to smear me, call me paranoid or jealous to justify her actions. I prepared myself mentally for the legal battles ahead, knowing she'd try to twist everything in her favor. She'd claim she was abused or misunderstood or that I was an unfit husband, but I had enough evidence to prove otherwise. I knew she'd try to take the house, the inheritance, and even custody of the kids, but I was determined to fight for what was rightfully mine. The most shocking part: she had the nerve to accuse me of ruining her life, saying I was holding her back. She told me I was the one who was insecure, that she deserved happiness, and that I should just accept her new life with Mark. That's when I realized how far gone she was, completely deluded, living in her own fantasy world. She thought she could lie, cheat, steal, and manipulate her way out of everything. But I wasn't going to let her. Not anymore. I made a promise to myself that I'd do whatever it took to protect my kids, my home, and my dignity. Right now, I'm just waiting for the legal papers to start rolling in. I know she's going to fight hard, but I've got enough proof to shut her down. I want her to know that her lies won't get her anywhere, that I see her for what she really is, an unfaithful, manipulative bitch who thought she could walk all over me. I don't know how this will end, but I do know I'm done being the naive husband. From now on, I'll stand my ground, fight for what's mine, and finally put an end to this nightmare she's created. The legal process dragged on longer than I expected, but I stayed focused. I knew that if I didn't push hard, she'd try to squeeze every penny out of me, claim half the house, and walk away with the inheritance she hadn't earned. My lawyer, Mike, was good. He helped me gather more concrete evidence, prepared my case, and warned me about her tactics. She was good at lying, but I had enough proof now: videos, bank statements, her secret marriage license, even the investigator's footage, that I felt confident I could fight her off. Meanwhile, Lisa's attitude only worsened. She became more aggressive, more bitchy, and more manipulative. She'd call me a loser, say I was jealous because I'd caught her cheating, and accuse me of trying to ruin her happiness. She even tried to turn the kids against me, telling them I was mean and controlling, trying to make herself look like the victim. I hated watching her lie to them, knowing she was just trying to manipulate their feelings. But I knew I needed to stay calm. Fighting fire with fire wouldn't help anything. One night I found out she'd been secretly meeting Mark and David again. I saw her leaving a hotel after midnight, her face flushed, her hair a mess. I felt my stomach tighten, rage bubbling up. I followed her at a distance just to confirm. Seeing her with those two men so brazen made everything real. She wasn't just cheating, she was living a double life, planning her escape. I got close enough to hear her whispering to Mark, "Tonight's the night. We'll be free of him soon." That was the moment I realized she'd already made her choice. She was leaving and she was taking everything with her. I knew I had to act fast. I called my lawyer and told him to prepare for a court hearing. I also reached out to my family, explaining the situation and asking for support. I had to brace myself for her next move, knowing she'd try to spin everything in her favor, claiming I was abusive or controlling. But I had the evidence and I was ready to fight back. I also started drafting a plan to protect my inheritance, my parents' savings, the house, everything I'd been counting on for my future. I couldn't let her steal that from me. What hurt most was how she kept insisting she was the victim. She'd call me a jealous loser, say I was trying to keep her from her happiness, and accuse me of ruining her life. She didn't care that she'd betrayed me, that she'd lied to my face for months, or that she'd married her boss after stealing our savings. She just wanted to justify her actions and keep her new life intact. I felt sick every time I heard her spin her stories, trying to make herself look innocent. But I knew better now. I saw through her lies. I started realizing how much I'd been blind. I'd loved her, trusted her, believed in us. But she'd been playing me all along, using her body, her lies, her charm, to get what she wanted. And now she was trying to take everything I had. Left, I knew I couldn't let her do that. I had to stand my ground, fight for my rights, and make sure she paid for her betrayal. I wasn't going to let her walk away with my house, my inheritance, or my dignity, not without a fight. So here I am, waiting for the court date, gathering every piece of evidence I can find and preparing for the showdown. I don't know how it will turn out, but I do know I'm done being the naive husband. I've learned my lesson: trust is earned, not given blindly. I've learned that the woman I married turned out to be someone I don't even recognize anymore. And I've learned that sometimes the only way to deal with a liar and cheater is to fight back hard and take what's rightfully yours. I'll see this through to the end, even if it destroys everything I once believed in. Because at this point, I'd rather lose everything than keep living in her lies. The courtroom was a battlefield, and I knew I had to be sharp. Lisa showed up, looking haughty and dismissive, trying to act like she was the innocent victim. She brought her own lawyer, a slick guy who tried to spin her version of events, how I was controlling, jealous, and how she was just trying to find happiness after a failed marriage. But I had everything lined up. The videos of her with Mark and David, the bank statements showing her stealing our savings, the evidence of her secret marriage, and the investigators' footage, all of it was laid out in front of the judge. When it was my turn, I told the court everything. How she'd lied from the start, how she'd secretly married her boss after stealing our money, and how she'd been living a double life with Mark and David. I explained how she'd been trying to manipulate her way into the house, claiming half when she had no right to it. I presented the evidence, showing her texts, videos, and financial records. I could see her squirming, trying to deny everything, but it was useless. The proof was damning. The judge listened carefully, asked a few questions, and then made his ruling. He awarded me full custody of the kids, ordered her to pay back the stolen money, and declared that she had no claim to the house or the inheritance. The court basically confirmed what I'd known all along, that she was a liar and a cheat. When she heard the verdict, her face twisted in rage, but she knew she'd been beaten. Her attempts to spin the story failed. The truth was too clear. In the aftermath, I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. The nightmare was finally over, but the scars remained. I started the process of rebuilding, changing locks, setting up new bank accounts, and making sure she couldn't interfere anymore. I also focused on the kids, making sure they understood the truth without exposing them to her manipulations. It wasn't easy. She kept trying to contact them to turn them against me, but I stayed firm. I wanted them to see the woman she really was, something I wished I'd seen sooner. Looking back, I realize I learned a lot from this ordeal. Trust is fragile, and sometimes people hide their true selves behind masks. I also learned the importance of standing up for myself, of fighting for what's right, even when it feels hopeless. Lisa's betrayal hurt deeply, but it also showed me that I can survive the worst. I found strength, I did. No, I had, and I finally let go of the hope that she'd change or come back. She's gone, and I'm better off without her. Now I focus on my future, rebuilding my life, spending time with my kids, and making sure I never let anyone manipulate me like that again. It's a hard lesson, but one I'll carry with me forever. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this: never ignore the signs, trust your instincts, and never be afraid to fight for yourself. Because at the end of the day, nobody is coming to save you, Sometimes you have to save yourself. And I did. I finally did.